The world stood still for a moment as Dr. Lyra Vasquez stood at the podium in the Global Summit Chamber, the eyes of the entire planet focused on her. Behind her, a vast screen displayed an image of the Cortex Singularity, humanity's latest invention, a weapon unlike any other. The silence was palpable, broken only by the hum of the machinery surrounding the room. Vasquez wasn't just a scientist. She was the heart of a revolution that had taken humanity's boldest step into the future. "What you see behind me," she began, her voice steady and commanding, "is not just a weapon. It is a promise that humanity can alter the very fabric of the universe. This is the Cortex Singularity, a device capable of manipulating space-time itself." The screen behind her flickered, showing a simulation of the weapon in action. A blinding light, a ripple across the fabric of space, a massive asteroid, once solid and unyielding, reduced to nothingness in a single pulse of energy. It was a sight that left even the most hardened leaders of Earth's nations stunned into silence. The galaxy had always seen humans as fragile, unpredictable creatures, a species of great potential, yes, but lacking the firepower to influence the larger, established galactic powers. Now, everything had changed. But for every voice of awe, there were those who spoke of fear. The Council of Galactic Dominion, a coalition of the galaxy's most powerful alien civilizations, had been monitoring humanity's progress for years. Their leaders, a collection of wise and ancient beings, had never been concerned about Earth's place in the galaxy, until now. "We don't know what this will lead to," Vasquez continued, her eyes scanning the room. "But what we do know is that Cortex Singularity is a tool to ensure that humanity can never be wiped out again, a tool of last resort." As she spoke, the world's media buzzed with activity. News outlets were flooded with debates on whether Earth should be trusted with such power. Could humanity wield this new force responsibly? Or would they become the next oppressive empire, drunk on their own abilities? The very same questions were being asked in secret across the galaxy. In the heart of the Galactic Dominion, the situation was already escalating. Representatives of various races gathered in a dimly lit war room, each leader glaring at a large holographic display of Earth. "Do we allow them to live?" Empress Kratis, the towering insectoid ruler of the Khazar Empire, hissed. "Or do we ensure their downfall before they can become a threat?" Her second-in-command, a ruthless strategist named Zither, spoke up. "If we strike now, we risk igniting war with every other species that fears us. We cannot afford to let humanity grow stronger." Across the table, the Elmar delegate, a serene figure shrouded in soft, glowing robes, intervened. "The Cortex Singularity is far too dangerous for any one species to wield. We must offer them a chance to abandon this weapon before it leads them, and us, into destruction." Back on Earth, Vasquez didn't know that the galaxy was already drawing its lines. She didn't know that an assassin's blade was already being prepared for her. As she exited the summit hall, a sense of unease filled the air. The weapon had shown its power, but now, humanity would learn something far more terrifying. Being too powerful often means becoming the target. A sudden flash of movement caught her attention. Someone was in the shadows, watching. Then the air shifted. The dart, sharp as a whisper, cut through the space just inches from her face. The assassination attempt was real, and the galaxy had already begun to act. But who was behind it? And what did they know about the singularity that humanity didn't? The questions were multiplying. And for the first time, Dr. Lyra Vasquez realized that she had just opened a door to a universe full of enemies, and humanity was the only thing standing in their way. The Khazar Empire had been silent for too long, content to let humanity play with its new toy. But when the news of the Cortex Singularity spread across the galaxy, the insectoid warlords saw an opportunity to seize the weapon for themselves. Empress Kratis, a being of cold calculation and ruthless ambition, knew that the singularity was more than a tool of destruction. It was a means to bend the galaxy to her will. and she was willing to do whatever it took to claim it. The first strike came without warning. A Khazar fleet, massive, brutish, and advanced beyond humanity's capacity to fully understand, slammed into the outer rim colony of Elysium Prime. The colony, home to over 1 million humans, was built on a mineral-rich moon orbiting a distant star. It had been one of the first human settlements beyond Earth, and its loss would send a powerful message to the galaxy. General Kai Kessler, commander of Earth's newly formed defense fleet, received the call at dawn. A small, isolated fleet of human ships, meant only for exploration, was completely overwhelmed by the Khazars' superior firepower. The Khazars' horde battleships, ships capable of launching devastating plasma volleys and deploying legions of ground troops, began the bombardment before any resistance could even mount a defense. Kessler's heart sank as he watched the first reports come in. Thousands of lives were being lost. A full-scale evacuation was impossible. The Khazar were swift, savage, and ruthless. He had been trained for combat. But this was different. But humanity had one card up its sleeve: the Cortex Singularity. Vasquez, who had spent her life studying the weapon, was already on her way to the command center. The weapon had never been tested in a real war scenario, but the time for hesitation was over. The human fleet gathered in orbit around Elysium Prime, their ships forming a tight defensive formation. The Khazar were closing in for the kill. The decision was made. "Activate it," Kessler ordered, his voice tight. Now. The Cortex Singularity hummed to life, its energy crackling through the command center. Vasquez, pale and exhausted, punched in the final sequence. The room's lights flickered as the weapon powered up. She felt the weight of it, a weight she hadn't truly understood until now. It wasn't just the power to annihilate. It was the power to reshape everything. A single pulse, a single focused wave of energy. The fabric of space warped. The horde battleships of the Khazar fleet, 12 massive vessels, disintegrated in a flash. Not exploded. Disintegrated. The ships vanished in the blink of an eye, as though they had never existed. The momentary calm that followed was deafening. But something was wrong. Kessler's eyes widened as a crackling noise filled the room. What happened? He barked. Vasquez's fingers flew across the console, trying to stabilize the system. But it was too late. The Cortex Singularity was too powerful. In its wake, a rift in space opened, pulsating, unstable, and threatening to swallow entire sections of the fleet. Space itself seemed to ripple like a stretched cloth, warping in every direction. "We need to shut it down," Vasquez shouted, panic rising in her chest. Now. But before anyone could respond, a ship from the Khazar fleet, an assault cruiser, slipped through the rift, appearing directly in the midst of the human formation. Its weapons fired wildly, catching 2 human ships in the blast. They were torn apart as the rift continued to pulse, creating deadly energy waves across the battlefield. Kessler's mind raced. The Cortex Singularity had done what they needed, yes. It had wiped out the immediate threat, but now it was more than a weapon. It was a force of nature, something that could not be controlled. The rift had to be closed, or it would destroy them all. "Full retreat," Kessler ordered, rallying his fleet. "Form a perimeter around the rift." "Vasquez, can you fix it?" I don't know," she whispered, the weight of the situation bearing down on her. This was never meant to be used this way. The Khazar, now desperate, began to regroup. They had lost their battle fleet, but they were far from finished. And they were watching humanity closely, learning that the Singularity, if left unchecked, would not just change the rules of war, it would rewrite them. As the Cortex Singularity crackled, casting its distorted shadow over the battlefield, Kessler understood one thing. Humanity had just become the galaxy's most dangerous player, and its next move could either save them or doom them all. The destruction of the Khazar fleet was swift and brutal, but it had come at a cost. Humanity's victory at Elysium Prime was not without consequences. The Cortex Singularity had proven itself as a weapon capable of unimaginable power, but its unchecked force had created an unstable rift in spacetime. What was once a simple tool for defense had now become an existential threat, not just for humanity, but for the entire galaxy. As Earth's political leaders scrambled to formulate a response, a new wave of fear washed over the galaxy. The Council of Galactic Dominion, a powerful conglomerate of alien races, had long kept the peace among the stars. The Dominion represented species far older and more advanced than humanity. To them, the rise of the human race had always been an afterthought. Until now. High-ranking members of the Council convened in a secret chamber, hidden deep within a fortress station on the fringes of the galaxy. Among them was Korta, the towering leader of the Taulan, an ancient race of energy beings. His voice reverberated through the chamber as he addressed the others. This Cortex Singularity is beyond any weapon we have ever encountered, Korta said, his form pulsating with energy. The humans have proven that they can alter the very structure of reality itself. This is a power we cannot allow to go unchecked. A delegate from the Xenari race, an insectoid species known for their tactical genius, spoke up. The Khazar have been destroyed, but we cannot let the humans become the new threat. If they grow too powerful, the balance of the galaxy will be shattered. The Khazar were only the first to fall. Indeed, chimed in Alicia, an Elmar diplomat, her soft voice echoing in the chamber. The Elmar were known for their pacifism, but they were not without their influence. The Cortex Singularity is a weapon of mass destruction. If it is not destroyed or controlled, humanity will become the galaxy's greatest threat. We cannot risk it falling into the wrong hands. The debate raged for hours, but the decision was clear. The Council of Galactic Dominion would take action. Back on Earth, General Kai Kessler watched the unfolding chaos from his command center. He had heard whispers of the Council's response, but nothing had prepared him for the gravity of the situation. Humanity was being washed, and not in a benevolent way. He had just led Earth to its first victory in galactic history, but the victory felt hollow. The Cortex Singularity had saved them, but it was also the very reason humanity was now a target. "I need answers, Vasquez," Kessler said as he paced the room, the tension clear in his voice. The Khazar fleet was just the beginning. The Dominion will not let this go. How do we control a weapon like this? Or better yet, how do we destroy it before they decide we're a threat? Dr. Lyra Vasquez, her face pale from lack of sleep, sat hunched over a console. She had been working nonstop to try and find a way to stabilize the Singularity, but nothing seemed to work. Every attempt to shut it down had only caused further disruptions in spacetime. It was as if the weapon itself was alive, an uncontrollable force that resisted any effort to contain it. "I don't know, General," she replied, her voice heavy with frustration. "The weapon is beyond our understanding. It's linked to something far larger than just us. I think it's a fragment of an ancient device, a network of sorts, but the details, we don't have them yet." The door to the command center slid open, revealing an emissary from the Reigen, a race of shadowy, stealth-operating assassins who had long remained neutral in galactic politics. Their leader, Noxira, had sent a message. Humanity was not alone in their fear of the Singularity. The emissary handed Kessler a small datapad. It displayed a cryptic message from Noxira. "The Singularity is not just a weapon. It is a key, and others will come for it, including us. Beware the forces that lie in the dark corners of the galaxy." The warning sent a chill through Kessler's spine. Who else was hunting the Cortex Singularity? And why was it a key? Before Kessler could respond, an alarm blared across the command center. A new transmission came through, a direct broadcast from the Khazar Empire. Empress Kratis' face filled the screen. "Humans," she hissed, "you have defied the Khazar. You have claimed the power that belongs to the galaxies. But you will not hold it for long. We will return to take what is ours, and we will destroy all who stand in our way." Her words sent ripples of fear through the command center, but Kessler's resolve hardened. Humanity had taken its first step into the galactic stage, and it wouldn't be intimidated by threats. "This isn't over," Kessler muttered, staring at the screen as Kratis' image vanished. Not by a long shot. The Khazar had been dealt with, but they would return. And if the Dominion's fears were true, humanity wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for control over the very future of the galaxy. The Khazar had been dealt with, but they would return. And if the Dominion's fears were true, humanity wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for control over the very future of the galaxy. The days that followed Empress Kratis' threat were a whirlwind of preparations, alliances, and mounting tension. Humanity stood at the precipice of something far larger than it had ever anticipated. The Cortex Singularity had already proven to be the most powerful weapon ever crafted. But now, it was clear. It was no longer just a tool for humanity's defense. It was a target, a key that could open doors to unimaginable forces that the galaxy had already begun to move against. General Kai Kessler sat in the war room, reviewing the latest intelligence. The Khazar Empire had begun to mobilize its forces, regrouping and preparing for a second assault. But they weren't the only ones watching. The Galactic Dominion was now openly discussing humanity's fate. Earth, once a backwater planet on the fringes of galactic politics, had now become the center of a conflict that threatened to tear the galaxy apart. "General, we've intercepted a transmission from the Taulan," said Captain Mira Owens, Kessler's trusted officer, breaking his thoughts. "It's a direct request for an audience. They've offered to assist us in understanding the singularity." Kessler glanced up at the holographic display. The Taulan were known as an ancient race of energy beings, possessing a level of intellect and technology far beyond anything humanity could comprehend. The fact that they were reaching out could either be a gift or a grave mistake. "Do we trust them?" Kessler asked, his voice guarded. "It's difficult to say," Owens replied. "But we don't have many options. We're alone in this." Kessler rubbed his chin, the weight of his decision heavy on his shoulders. Humanity had taken a huge step forward with the Cortex Singularity, but the risk was mounting by the hour. The Khazar Empire was a ruthless foe, and now there was the Dominion to contend with. Their combined might would be enough to wipe Earth off the galactic map if they chose to do so. "We'll meet with them," Kessler decided, his mind already moving to the next phase of strategy. "Prepare for a secure transmission. I want to know what the Taulan know, and more importantly, what they want from us." Meanwhile, Dr. Lyra Vasquez found herself wrestling with an even more pressing issue. The Singularity's rift continued to pulse in the background, a reminder of just how much they were teetering on the edge of disaster. She had spent days running simulations, trying to predict the long-term effects of using such a weapon. But the results were troubling. Every time the Singularity was activated, it created fractures in space-time, but there was no telling how long those fractures would last, or how far they would spread. Worse yet, the Cortex Singularity was linked to an ancient network of technology scattered across the galaxy, technology that had once been used by a civilization long gone. Vasquez stood in front of the holographic projection of the device, her fingers trembling as she adjusted the display. The network was vast, and the Singularity was merely one piece of it. The thought struck her, what if the Cortex Singularity was not just a weapon, but a signal? A beacon for something much older, something that had been dormant for millennia. Before she could dig deeper into her thoughts, her communicator buzzed, pulling her back to reality. "Dr. Vasquez," said Captain Owens, her voice tense, "we've received the Taulan transmission. General Kessler wants you there." A chill ran down Vasquez's spine as she realized the weight of what was happening. The Taulan weren't just offering assistance, they were offering insight into something that humanity had barely begun to comprehend. This was a pivotal moment. If they could unlock the mysteries of the Cortex Singularity, they might just have the key to understanding the forces that were now closing in on them. As Vasquez made her way to the secure communications room, The thought that had been nagging at her surfaced again. What if the singularity wasn't just a weapon of war? What if it was a tool meant for something far greater, something that could change the balance of the galaxy forever? The Talhan's offer was a lifeline, but it could also be a trap. The ancient race had always been shrouded in mystery, and their true motives were unknown. What did they stand to gain from helping humanity? Or was this just another maneuver in a much larger game? When Vasquez entered the war room, she was met with the glowing holographic form of Korta, the leader of the Talhan. His energy-based presence flickered in the air like a mirage, his voice soft but commanding. Humanity has awoken something that has been dormant for eons, Korta intoned, his form shimmering in the light. The Cortex singularity is not just a weapon, Dr. Vasquez. It is a key to a network that spans the stars, a key to the power of the Ancient Ones. If you continue down this path, you will not only unlock its power, but you will awaken forces you cannot control. Vasquez's breath caught in her throat. This was not the assurance of an ally. It was a warning. The Talhan were not here to offer aid without cost, and what they had just revealed changed everything. Tell us how to control it, Vasquez demanded, her voice sharp with urgency. We can't let this spiral out of control. Korta's flickering form seemed to pause, as if considering the words carefully. Finally, he spoke again, his tone somber. Control is an illusion. But you must understand this. If the singularity's true purpose is realized, it will not just change the galaxy, it will unmake it. The words from Korta, the enigmatic leader of the Talhan, hung in the air like a dark omen. Humanity had not only stumbled upon the Cortex singularity, but they had also awakened something far older, something far more dangerous than anyone had anticipated. The power of the singularity was undeniable, but as Dr. Lyra Vasquez and General Kai Kessler quickly realized, there was no way to control it. And without control, the stakes were too high. We can't just shut it down, Vasquez muttered, her eyes still locked on the flickering holographic form of Korta. If we don't understand what it really is, if we don't unlock its secrets, then what are we even fighting for? Korta's form rippled in a way that might have been a gesture of sympathy, or perhaps a warning. The singularity is not merely a weapon, Dr. Vasquez. It is the last fragment of a civilization that has long since perished. It is part of an ancient network, a system designed not for destruction, but for control. Kessler paced in the war room, clearly uneasy with the direction this conversation was taking. What do you mean, control? He asked, his voice clipped. Control over what? Over us. Korta's energy pulses seemed to slow, as if the Talhan leader was weighing his response carefully. The Cortex singularity is a key, yes, but it is a key to something far worse. It was created by the Isheri, a race of beings whose power transcended time and space. They were the architects of this galaxy's first galactic empire, long before your species ever emerged. The singularity was part of a network they used to maintain order, to control vast swaths of the galaxy. But they did not anticipate their own downfall. Vasquez's mind raced, trying to piece together the information. The Isheri, they created the singularity. But why? To do what? Their purpose was to harness the very fabric of space-time. Korta continued, his voice a soft echo of something older than the stars themselves. To bend it to their will, to shape reality itself. They were gods among mortals, and the singularity was their means of enforcing their dominion over the galaxy. But their arrogance destroyed them. They believed themselves invincible, until they weren't. Kessler turned to Vasquez, his expression grim. So, the singularity wasn't just a weapon. It was a tool to control the galaxy, a tool to create an empire. And now humanity has it. Vasquez nodded, though she could hardly believe what she was hearing. That's what it sounds like. And if the Ishari were destroyed, it means the network is still there, waiting to be activated. The singularity, it's not just a relic. It's a trigger. Korta's form flickered again. Indeed, And now, that trigger is in your hands." A tense silence settled over the room. Kessler's eyes narrowed as he looked at the hologram of the Talon leader. "If it's true that this network can control space-time itself, we can't let anyone, Khazar, Dominion, or anyone else, get their hands on it. We need to destroy it before it's too late." "You cannot destroy it," Korta said, his voice deepening. "The Ishari left safeguards in place. The singularity cannot be destroyed so easily. And even if you could, there are forces in the galaxy who would tear your species apart to ensure that it is returned to its rightful place, to its true purpose." Kessler clenched his fists. "So what do you suggest? We just sit on this power and wait for someone else to take it from us?" "The choice is yours, human," Korta replied. "But be warned, there are entities beyond the Dominion, the Khazar, or any other power you know who seek the singularity. These forces are ancient, and their motives are unclear. I would advise you to tread carefully, for they may be watching even now." The screen went dark as Korta's holographic image flickered out, leaving Vasquez and Kessler alone with the weight of his words. Kessler's voice was low, almost to himself. "Who else is out there? Who else would want this weapon?" "I don't know," Vasquez replied, her mind racing. "But I don't think we've seen the last of the Khazar, and I don't think the Dominion is going to stand by and let us use this power unchecked." "Then we have no choice," Kessler said, a steely resolve entering his voice. "We need to find out everything we can about the Ishari. We need to understand how to use this singularity. Because if we don't, it won't be long before someone else does." The weight of that truth settled over them. The Cortex singularity was not just a weapon. It was a doorway to an empire long lost to time, a doorway that could either save humanity or destroy it. And now, humanity was standing on the edge, with no map to guide them. The silence in the command center was deafening as General Kai Kessler and Dr. Lyra Vasquez stared at the empty space where Korta's holographic projection had been just moments ago. The weight of the Talon leader's revelation pressed down on them. The Cortex singularity was no longer just a powerful weapon. It was a key, a relic of the Ishari, a race whose ambition had nearly destroyed the galaxy eons ago. The consequences of humanity's discovery now rippled outward, attracting forces far older and far more dangerous than they could have imagined. Kessler broke the silence first. "We can't just sit here and wait for these ancient entities to come for us. We need to understand the singularity. We need to know everything there is to know about the Ishari and their network." Vasquez nodded, her mind still reeling from the information. "I agree. The singularity was meant to control the fabric of space-time, to bend reality itself. But if the Ishari were destroyed, that means the network they built is still out there. And if it's activated, we won't just be controlling space. We'll be controlling the entire flow of time." The implications were staggering. Humanity had barely learned to wield the singularity's power, and already they were facing forces beyond their comprehension. The Khazar would be back. The Dominion was already planning its next move, and now there were these mysterious ancient entities lurking in the shadows. "We need more than just knowledge," Kessler said, voice hardening. "We need to find a way to defend ourselves from these ancient forces. If we can't control the singularity, we need to make sure no one else can. That means uncovering everything about the Ishari's downfall. We can't let history repeat itself." Vasquez's fingers flew across the console, pulling up every fragment of information she had managed to uncover on the Ishari and their lost empire. What she found only raised more questions. The Ishari had been a race of immense power, capable of manipulating the fundamental laws of the universe. They built an empire that spanned the stars, their control over space-time enabling them to govern vast regions of the galaxy with precision and absolute authority. But that control had come at a steep cost. The singularity was part of a network designed to maintain that control, a control that had eventually turned destructive. It wasn't just that the Ishari had fallen. They had destroyed themselves in the process of their own ambition. The network. It was never just a weapon. Vasquez muttered under her breath, scrolling through ancient data files. It was a system of domination, but it was also a prison. The singularity was supposed to keep everything in line, keep time, space, and reality in order. But when the Ishari were overthrown, that prison collapsed. It left the network fractured. And now we're the ones holding the last fragment. Kessler's brow furrowed. So if the network is fractured, that means? It means we don't fully understand the power we're dealing with. Vasquez interrupted. And if someone else does, they might know how to reassemble it. Or worse, activate parts of it that we've never even encountered. Suddenly, the room was flooded with an urgent alert. The ship's systems hummed with the sound of an incoming transmission. Kessler's eyes narrowed. Who's contacting us now? The holographic screen flickered to life, showing a transmission from an unknown source, one that did not come from the Khazar or the Dominion, but from a shadowy corner of the galaxy. It was an encrypted message, but the identification code was unmistakable. It was from Noxira, the leader of the Reagan, the elusive race of assassins who had always operated in the fringes of galactic politics. They had offered a cryptic warning before, but now they were reaching out again. The message began, the voice of Noxira resonating with a calm but chilling tone. Humanity has made a dangerous choice. The Cortex singularity is not merely a weapon. It is the key to something much darker. You have no idea what you are dealing with. You were right to fear the Khazar, but they are not your true enemy. If you value your existence, you will stop your pursuit of the singularity. The transmission paused for a moment, and then Noxira's voice returned, more urgent now. The Ishari's downfall was no accident. They were destroyed by an ancient power, an entity older than time itself. A power that still sleeps, but is now stirring. If the singularity is activated again, it will awaken this entity, and you will be the ones to face its wrath. Kessler clenched his jaw, anger rising. So we're to just hand over the singularity. Let it fall into the hands of the Khazar or the Dominion. No, we have no choice but to understand it. We need to find a way to control it before anyone else can. General, Vasquez interrupted, her voice low but filled with urgency. The Reagan. They're not wrong. There's something bigger than the Khazar or the Dominion at play here. These ancient entities, they're not just a threat to us. They could undo everything. Kessler's gaze hardened. Then we don't just need to protect the singularity. We need to understand its true purpose. If this ancient power is real, we have to be ready. But as the transmission ended and the room fell into silence, Kessler felt a creeping doubt. They had learned nothing for certain, only that they were standing on the edge of something far more dangerous than they could have imagined. And now, with the forces of the galaxy watching, there was no turning back. The command center was abuzz with activity. The recent transmission from Noxira, the leader of the Reagan, had sent shockwaves through humanity's command ranks. The warning was clear: activate the Cortex singularity, and the ancient power that had destroyed the Ishari would awaken once more. No one knew exactly what this entity was, but its wrath was said to be absolute. And now, humanity had become the focal point of a galaxy teetering on the brink of war. General Kai Kessler stood at the center of the war room, his mind racing as he absorbed the gravity of the situation. Dr. Lyra Vasquez stood by his side, her expression tight with concern. "We're running out of time," Kessler muttered, his voice heavy. "The Khazar are mobilizing again, the Dominion's got eyes on us, and now we have an ancient entity to worry about. We need a solution, and we need it fast." Vasquez, who had been poring over ancient texts and data about the Ishari and their downfall, finally spoke up. The singularity. It wasn't just a weapon for the Ishari. It was the heart of their empire, the tool they used to control everything, from space itself to the flow of time. If it truly does link to something older, something powerful, there's no telling what might happen if we try to control it. Kessler clenched his fists. Then we're stuck. If we destroy it, Someone else will take it. And if we use it, we might trigger the awakening of something that will wipe us off the face of the galaxy. I won't let humanity become another casualty of this ancient war." Vasquez turned toward the massive holographic map of the galaxy, her eyes narrowing. "There's another possibility," she said slowly. "We may not be able to control the singularity, but we might be able to contain it. The HFY built it to hold something in check, not just to dominate. If we can decipher the fail-safes they put in place, we might be able to neutralize the threat without destroying the singularity entirely." Kessler raised an eyebrow. "Contain it how? The Talon warned us that there's no real control over the singularity's power. We don't even understand how it works. How can we contain something we barely understand?" "It's a risk, but it might be the only one we have left," Vasquez said, the urgency in her voice unmistakable. "We know the singularity was designed to keep a delicate balance. If we can reverse engineer its safeguards, we may be able to isolate it, to lock it in a state where it won't activate the ancient network, and we can prevent it from falling into the wrong hands." Just then, the room's lights dimmed, and the ship's alarm systems blared. A voice echoed over the intercom, cold and resolute. "General Kessler, we have incoming multiple Khazar warships, along with Dominion scout vessels. They're moving fast. We estimate they'll reach our position in less than an hour." The war room erupted into chaos, but Kessler's face remained stoic. The situation was dire, but his resolve had only hardened. "Prepare for battle," he ordered. "Activate the defense grid, ready the Cortex singularity for lockdown protocols, and get us ready to move. We're not giving up on this. We'll hold the line long enough to figure out how to contain it." Vasquez's voice was tight with concern. "What if we don't have enough time? What if we can't contain it before they reach us?" Kessler turned to face her, his expression unwavering. "Then we'll fight for every second we have." As preparations were made, Vasquez couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of options. The Cortex singularity was humanity's only bargaining chip against the galaxy's most powerful factions, but it was also a volatile, unpredictable force. If the Khazar and Dominion attacked before they could find a way to neutralize its threat, humanity's fight for survival would become a race against time. Outside the command center, the hum of the ship's engines grew louder as the crew moved into battle stations. The view screens showed the approaching warships, dark silhouettes against the stars, their weapons primed and ready. Vasquez stood at the edge of the room, staring at the singularity's interface. Her thoughts were a tangled mess. She had spent so long studying the device, but the more she uncovered, the more questions piled up. Why had the HFY built it? What had they hoped to accomplish by creating such an unimaginable force? And now, humanity stood on the precipice of unleashing the same forces that had destroyed the HFY millennia ago. A voice broke through her thoughts. "Dr. Vasquez," said Lieutenant Jackson, one of the lead engineers, "we've decrypted part of the Singularity's control system. There's a failsafe code embedded deep within its core. If we can access it, we might be able to trigger a stabilization sequence." Vasquez's heart raced. "Can you get it?" "We're close, but we'll need time," Jackson replied, his tone grim. "And if the Khazar and Dominion attack, we won't have much of it." Kessler's voice cut through the tension. "Then we'll give you time. Whatever it takes." As the ship's defenses powered up and the battle preparations unfolded, Vasquez found herself staring at the Cortex singularity once more. This wasn't just a weapon. It was a Pandora's box, and humanity was the one to have opened it. The choice between control and chaos was never simple, and now, as the warships of the Khazar and the Dominion loomed closer, the burden of that choice pressed down on them all. Humanity had arrived at the edge of despair, and the only question left was, could they survive the consequences of their discovery? The tension in the command center was suffocating. General Kai Kessler stood at the front of the room, his eyes locked on the view screens displaying the approaching warships. The Khazar fleet was massive, a swarm of sleek vessels with glistening black hulls that seemed to absorb the light of distant stars. Behind them, the Dominion ships hung like a shadow, their imposing shapes menacing in their silence. They were closing in, and the time for decisions was running out. "How much longer, Lieutenant?" Kessler barked, his voice sharp with urgency. Lieutenant Jackson stood hunched over his console, sweat beading on his brow. "We're almost there, General. The failsafe code is close to being decrypted. I just need—" Suddenly, the ship shuddered. The warning alarms blared to life, and a voice echoed through the intercom, sounding panicked. "General, the Khazar have locked onto our main reactor. They're charging weapons." The battle had begun. Kessler's instincts kicked into overdrive. "Deploy the defense grid. I want all available fighters in the air. Activate the Cortex Singularity's lockdown protocols. Get us ready for evasive maneuvers." Vasquez's voice broke through the chaos. "General, we don't have time. The Singularity can't wait. We've almost got the stabilization sequence, but if we don't trigger it soon—" "I know," Kessler interrupted, his gaze flickering to the interface where the Cortex Singularity pulsed ominously. "But we need to buy you time. We won't get another chance." As the ship rocked again from the impact of enemy fire, Kessler's mind raced. The only thing standing between humanity and certain destruction was the possibility of containing the Cortex Singularity. He had no illusions. If they failed, the consequences would be catastrophic. But there was no choice now. They couldn't destroy it, and they couldn't let the Khazar or the Dominion control it. Their only hope was to contain it long enough to neutralize its threat. Dr. Lyra Vasquez stood beside the console, her eyes fixed on the swirling holographic display of the Singularity's core. She had deciphered enough of its code to understand its potential. The failsafe was there, buried deep within its systems, but unlocking it was a delicate task. The stakes couldn't have been higher. "Almost there," Vasquez whispered to herself, her fingers flying over the console, her heart pounding in her chest. Suddenly, the ship rocked violently as a burst of Khazar energy fire slammed into the port side. Sparks flew from the control panels, and alarms screamed through the ship. The Cortex Singularity flickered ominously, its power surging as if reacting to the external pressure. The familiar hum of the Singularity's energy fields reverberated through the walls, sending a shiver down Vasquez's spine. "We don't have much time," Vasquez said, her voice tight with urgency. "Jackson," Kessler called out, his voice fierce. "Get us out of this. Now." The ship's engines roared to life as Jackson's team scrambled to reroute power. The Fortitude veered sharply, narrowly avoiding a direct hit from the Khazar's main weapon. But their attackers weren't done yet. The fleet tightened its formation, surrounding them on all sides. The seconds stretched out like hours. "Stabilization code unlocked," Vasquez said breathlessly. She entered the final command with shaking hands, holding her breath as the Singularity pulsed one last time. Then, everything stopped. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. The alarms died down, and the ship's systems hummed with an eerie stillness. The Cortex Singularity stabilized. Its violent energy field softened, the fluctuating lights dimming to a steady glow. Vasquez turned to Kessler, her face pale but determined. "It's done. For now, the Singularity is contained. It won't activate, not until we understand more about the network. But we have no idea what consequences this will have. This is just a temporary measure." Kessler let out a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. "Then we'll use this time to figure out what comes next." The battle outside had not ended, though. The Khazar warships were closing in, their weapons recharged and ready to fire. "General," Vasquez said, her voice steely, "we've contained the Singularity, but now we need to secure it. The longer it's left unsecured, the more likely it is someone will find a way to unlock its power again." Kessler's face hardened. "We're not letting that happen. Prepare for boarding actions. If they want this Singularity, they'll have to come through us first." The Fortitude shook as another barrage slammed into its shields. The Khazar had made their move, and the Dominion wasn't far behind. The stakes had never been higher. But Kessler had made his choice. Humanity's fate no longer rested on the Singularity alone. It was in their hands now, in their ability to fight, to stand firm against the galaxy's mightiest powers. And as the battle raged outside, one thought echoed in his mind. Survival was no longer a matter of winning or losing. It was a fight to preserve humanity's future in the galaxy against forces too ancient and powerful to comprehend. The Cortex Singularity was just the beginning. The war for the galaxy had only just begun.